back to GRR for episode 61.
And that was like, what? It was like a shitty movie with Billy Crystal as the director, which obviously gives us a lot of high hopes for 61. It was about that baseball player guy, and he hit some home runs. That's the extent of my sports knowledge, gentlemen.
Well, I think more importantly for number 61 in baseball, we need to say a nice annyeonghaseyo to Chan-Ho Park. He was going to bring the ring to Dallas.
I so thought you were going to try to say it with an accent.
No, that's too much.
This week we have video game reviews of Sega 3D Classics for the 3DS. We have Battleborn, the beta and the full, Battleborn Tap, board game reviews of Eminent Domain Microcosm, Yardmaster Express, movie reviews of Ratchet and Clank, Captain America Civil War, and a shitload of news for the week. So why don't we get right into it? Well, actually, I'm Matty D. This is KG, and this is Mr. Mike. How are you guys this week? I almost just brushed right past that. I'm excited to get to this. We have a packed episode.
Aloha. I took
I don't even know what to say now. Thwarted.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. We got a lot of cool shit to talk about, namely Cap'n. But yeah, other than being discouraged with HRR episode C, the C standing for cursed, and it's never gonna fucking happen. Yeah. We'll get to that in the news portion of it, but for whatever reason, Audacity has decided to destroy 2 recordings of this episode, so fuck it.
It was not meant to be, but I would also like to bring up the fact that KG is going to be in-house.
Oh my
next
goodness.
week.
More importantly, I will not be at work.
So we'll be bringing you our first episode where all 3 of us are in the same room together.
Makeout party. Woo, woo. You could do worse.
So why don't we... Maybe?
We'll see.
Let's get right into the movie review. KG, I heard you saw a little Ratchet and Clank.
I saw all of Ratchet and Clank, so the rumor is wrong. But
Ratchet got the yokes today.
I am.
We work on facts here, sir.
You were worried about my energy levels? Oh, don't you worry at all.
As the IGN of the South, we have to be factual with things we report.
Very terrific.
So Ratchet and Clank is a reimagining of the first Ratchet and Clank game, and instead of Clank being obsessed with the Rangers and Captain Quark, it's Ratchet. And it all just ties in the events of the first game with Drax, throwing in Nefarious. Anyone that's a fan of the franchise, you should definitely go check it out. It's really cool to see on the big screen. The jokes are a little flat, to be honest, though. Like, I didn't actually think, like, I laughed once. Like, I smiled, like, when you see the Zircons. I was like, oh, that's cute. That's Zircon. He's a thing from it. And then they had the Rhino, and each time they announced a new game or a new, gun, they would show, like, the name of the gun, and then obviously when they announced the Rhino, they'll rip you a new anus. All right, that part I think I laughed at. Other than that, the jokes fell kind of flat. The animation was very much a CG from a PS4 game, just stretched out across an hour and a half. If you're a fan of this franchise, check it out. It's worth it. You'll like it. It's good for a matinee. As a whole, though, I don't think I would go back and see it again. Like, if someone was like, oh, dude, I had to check it out. You want to go with me? Like, nah, I already saw it. I don't want to see it again.
I'm sure this is as Mike would put it,
Oh, this definitely sounds like doing laundry on a Sunday type movie.
Yeah, that's the feeling I got for it. I mean, I already knew the plot going in. They changed very little other than that little switch, like I said, with Ratchet and Clank's liking towards the Rangers. But, you know, the plot was quite predictable, even if you hadn't played the games. It's definitely feels like it's catering towards more of a kid's audience than an adult's. So,
you know, it's funny that you bring up the idea that it's an extended CG cutscene from a video game. Mm-hmm. You know, as it pertains to this series, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would love that, but how much better would it be if Warcraft decided to do something like this?
A kid's version of Warcraft?
Not a kid's version. God damn it. Not a kid's version. You know how they have really excellent cutscenes, or what if Blur decided to make a movie out of one of their cutscenes for anything. I think that would be really cool. I think because it's Ratchet and Clank, it's not as big of a thing, but I keep hearing the movie's really fun.
It's a good watch. Like I said, humor-wise, it kind of fell flat, and visually, it was nice, I guess, for a PS4 game. I keep on saying a game because it literally is a lifted series of CG sequences. That's what it honestly felt like. Like the ending of Metal Gear 4, how it's an hour and a half long? That. But at a cinema.
All right, well, I'd like to interject with a real quick thing. Overwatch has a launch celebration, and I'm going to put this in the movie section because there's a company called Tugg, T-U-G-G, that's putting together...
Don't mistype that in your search browser.
I mean, Pornhub does have an 817% rise in Overwatch being searched on it since its launch, since the beta launch.
Basically, what's going to happen is in select movie theaters across the United States, they are going to do an Overwatch launch celebration. It's going to happen Sunday, May 22nd, and there is one happening out here in Plano, but there's also some in the Northeast. Check you could type in, you can go to Overwatch page, or you can just type in Overwatch theaters. And it's basically all of their cinematics put together, plus some interviews and previews. It's like this special showing as like a marketing event for Overwatch. And on top of it, when you go there, you're also going to get some Overwatch swag. So I'm actually really thinking about going to visit this, but I thought I'd throw that in there real quick. It seems really cool, and Overwatch is amazing if you haven't played it yet.
And it's not available in Honolulu because reasons.
Continental United States only.
No, it goes to Alaska for one theater.
Hooray!
So now let's get into what people really want to hear about, something that I haven't seen yet, so I don't think there's spoilers. I don't really care about hearing this or not, but just in case, spoiler alert, Captain America Civil War, go!
Captain America is a Marvel superhero. No, Captain America Civil War. KG, you said you went and saw it opening night, right?
I sure
Thursday
did.
night?
I saw the first showing in my shitty little town.
And I saw it yesterday. To Matt's point, storyline-wise, I don't think there was anything we can really spoil.
I mean, it's based off of the Civil War comics, loosely. They do change a little bit, and there's no huge plot twist, so I guess that's kind of spoiler, that it doesn't end the way the comics do, is a big thing, but yeah, other than that, there's no real spoilers to say. I mean, the trailer already showed that they did get Spider-Man, so Spider-Man's in the movie. And then I think that was the only new character they introduced.
Well, Baron Selmy.
Zemo.
Who the fuck is Baron Selmy? Who am I thinking of?
I have no idea. Sorry, pal.
It's Baron Zemo.
Yes.
Hey, I'm great at being wrong.
Baron Zemo.
But they don't even really mention the fact that he's an actual character in the universe.
No, they gloss over
it. If you went
it.
in and you've only watched the movies, you have no idea who he is, and he's just generic bad guy. Which kind of sucks, because he's actually a pretty cool bad guy.
Yeah, that was one thing I really felt was flat about it, is the villain in this movie just didn't do anything for me. I didn't feel any emotion, hatred, dislike, he was just a character to me.
Yeah, a lot of this movie for me too, and I'll go ahead and say, cinematically, if you're trying to judge it as a movie against other movies, this is no Winter Soldier. I think that Winter Soldier was a movie, a legitimately good movie. Comic books are not.
Yes.
Now, on this one, if you're rating it against other comic book movies, it's great. But against real movies, or, air quotes real, to use a no true Scotsman fallacy, but if you're trying to put it up against movies, at a critical level, it is not Winter Soldier or on that level. But it's very fun. In the action sequences, I thought they have obviously put a lot more time and effort into.
It felt like Avengers 2.5, and it was just missing Hulk and Thor.
Yeah, for me, and I don't know if you felt the same way, I thought a lot of this was really disjointed. It didn't flow well as far as the story went, and it seemed pretty half-assed in its writing.
Yeah, the whole setup to the Civil War, it just felt really hollow. Like, in the comics, they level an entire town, and in the movie, they blow up like 2 stories of a building.
Yeah, like 11 people die.
Let's get these mutants under control.
Yeah, and Captain America, the fact that he's still trying to help and save Bucky just doesn't make sense.
Yes and no. It's Captain America's moral standpoint. It's the, I can save everyone. I'm the righteous, lawful good, and he will save everyone if he has the opportunity to. So I get him trying to save Bucky, but at this point, it almost seems nonsensical because it's saving one over hundreds of thousands.
Well, dude, he's a battered wife at this point. Like, that just keeps going back to her shitty, abusive husband.
Bucky, don't treat him no good.
But I mean, but I do want to touch on the point that the fucking action sequences are out of control good.
Yes, I was going to
they have obviously gone the route of hiring very, very good martial arts and action sequence scene developers for this. The choreography was amazing. The huge knockdown drag out fight between everybody at the airport was out of fucking control.
I thought the fight sequence with Tony versus Cap and Bucky was amazing, and they already spoiled it in the trailer, but that was amazingly done.
Dude, so at one point they're trying to find Bucky, and Captain America and Bucky are fighting a bunch of like special forces type people in a stairwell of an apartment complex, and that is fucking brutally cool.
Are these action sequences more comic booky, or are they as awesome as the one fight between Captain America and Winter Soldier from the Winter Soldier movie with the knife where he drops it out of his hand and catches it again and tries to swing at him? Like, I love that fucking scene. It's my absolute favorite fight scene in any movie.
Definitely
ever,
more comic booky.
It's more comic booky.
Well, see, that's the thing that was weird, though. So, like, the fight between all of them, go figure, the fight between all of the comic book superheroes is a very comic booky fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the part that I was talking about, where they're, like, fighting in
The apartment complex.
the stairwell in the apartment complex, that felt like Raid Redemption, or Raid if you've ever seen that movie. Like, very, very obviously martial arts, kung fu driven fight scenes. Like, very, Jason Bourne type, physical, gritty fights.
I think the fight that I had talked about with the 3 of them is definitely like the most, I guess, technically pleasing because it's very close quarters for the 3 of them.
And there's a lot of cool comic book shit that they do that I thought was great. Like, at one point, they're in this chase scene, and the Winter Soldier, Bucky, grabs a dude off of a motorcycle, and grabs a motorcycle with a bionic arm and, like, flips it while it's driving to go the other direction. I thought that shit was fucking badass.
I think the problem with Civil War is, one, we don't have that comic twist that I alluded to that would have been like great for people that are not familiar with the Civil War series. 2, you're following Winter Soldier. That was like the first comment I got from a couple of the people I went to go see the movie with was, it was good, not as good as Winter Soldier. And that's a monster of a thing to try and tackle. That's not really fair to Civil War, but it's sorry, you are being compared to your predecessors, just like Final Fantasy IX is compared to 7 and 8. Guess what? You're shit by association.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, Winter Soldier was an amazing movie in general.
Yes, Winter Soldier is the best comic book movie, in my opinion.
And I think it's the only one that you can look at and not have to call it a comic book movie.
Correct. It does transcend it quite well, and I think having that mindset, because I watched the first 2 Captain Americas before I went to see Civil War, and that kind of ruined it for me, I guess, was going into it with this expectation of, oh my god, they're going to be continuing off Winter Soldier, which was amazing, and I got, like I said, more of an Avengers movie than I got a Captain America movie.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Maybe they'll go back to a
and
Winter Soldier type thing again someday.
I know that we sound like we're being negative on it. This is a good movie. It's just not Winter Soldier. I think Avengers 2.5 is a much better way of calling it out.
And that's fine. It's a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for that, it's great. Now, there are 2 of the, I guess one of them is the 4th reboot at this point, characters. Is this Spider-Man's 3rd reboot or 4th? Maybe 4th iteration, 3rd reboot?
It depends if you're considering the old 70s live action.
Correct.
But new Spider-Man and Black Panther being the 2 biggest new characters in the series that I think are definitely both worth touching on.
I loved both. I loved both interpretations of the characters. Black Panther whoops ass, and Spider-Man...
Why you gotta say it all ethnic? That's just racist.
Oh, my
man.
goodness.
Dude, Black
The Black
Panther is
Panther
a fucking
doth
badass.
beateth several ass. And
That's overcompensation.
well, I have no middle grounds. I only deal in extremes. And Spider-Man, I thought, was an amazing portrayal.
I like that they went with a very, very young Spider-Man.
Yes.
They went with like a 15, 16-year-old Peter Parker. And he's had his powers, quote, in the movie for like 6 months.
Yep.
So here's the question about Spider-Man. I already talked to Mr. Mike about this before the show started, but I wanted to ask you.
Yep.
In the trailer, Spider-Man looked very bright, very cartoony, and I don't mean realistic. I mean, he looked really out of place. It looked like kind of ancient CG comparatively. He had very poor lighting on his character. And I understand, though, as a preview, it probably wasn't finished yet. In the movie, is it more believable that he's an actual person standing there?
I mean, they do have that funny scene with him and Tony where Tony says, the suit you're wearing looks like shit. Let me help you get you a better one. Even the upgraded suit, it does stick out, but I think that also has to do with the contrast of what everyone else is. Everyone else is metallic and got chrome or, a mesh or
Flak jacket.
Exactly. How the fuck are you going to make Spider-Man belong other than give him a leather jumpsuit a la X-Men?
So in this, I think that what they showed in the preview was the big airport fight scene, Spider-Man.
Yes.
When he's not in that, he looks perfectly fine. And to part of KG's point, that fight scene was done outside in super bright settings, and his costume is just very stylistically from materials different than everybody else's. I don't think that he looks that bad. It looked worse in the trailer than it did in the movie.
See, I wonder, is that the right choice, though? Because when you have a bunch of characters, even Black Panther is extremely updated and realistic looking comparatively to his comic book character, why would they go so far back into Spider-Man's history to just give him his classic leotard jumpsuit instead of just making it another version of the new Spider-Mans that we got from Sam Raimi and whoever the fuck else made those horrible new Spider-Man movies with Garfield?
To that, you could build it into the story. So that suit was made like a day before all of this happened. And it was made in like 24 hours. So you've got that going. I like the idea that they're going back. This is the Amazing Spider-Man. Like, this is the comic book series from the 90s that a lot of us read growing up. He is very, very Spider-Man. Oh, and shout out, Marissa Tomei is casted as Aunt May.
What?
And she is smoking hot
is
for
super
someone
hot.
who's 51.
Marissa Tomei is gorgeous. Always has been, always will be.
Yep.
She is nobody's grandmother. Or aunt, I get it, aunt, I know. But I'm just saying,
But if you think about it, this is like 15, 16-year-old Spider-Man, and Marissa Tomei's in her early 50s. She's still, I think, a little bit too young to play Aunt May.
Yeah.
But not terribly. Like, maybe 5, 7, 8 years tops of what it would be. So, like, young Peter, like, Peter Parker that's in college that we're also used to seeing.
This was the only thing that my buddy really was, like, overwhelmingly pissed off about was Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, and I responded, it was the first time I'd want to see Aunt May naked. She's fine by me.
Cut that out as a soundbite.
The fucking jokes of Tony Stark hitting on her while he's waiting for Peter Parker to get home are fucking great, though.
Okay. That's probably why they did it.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's good. If that's the direction you want to take it, I don't care. I'm fine with that.
All right. As we wrap this up, I have one big question.
Well, we still haven't even talked Black Panther yet.
Oh, okay. Do you want to fit in some Black Panther?
We should. He's fucking awesome.
All right.
is.
Talk about Black Panther because I have one major question at the end.
Okay, so with Black Panther's character, he's... What the fuck is his country? Wakanda. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So his dad dies, and that's like the catalyst, right?
Yep.
And his dad was the king of Wakanda, and
Well, welcome to superhero world.
Yeah, his dad dies. Go figure. His dad was the king of Wakanda, and he was...
Does that mean I'm a superhero?
Was your dad a king?
Of Wakanda?
Of Wakanda? Did he have vibranium? He ends up becoming king and warrior, and he's fucking Black Panther. The suit, the ears were weird.
No.
Is that just me?
They didn't bother me.
I thought his suit looked pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
His action sequences were great, and that's a lot of the thing where you're seeing what I was talking about the kung fu fight sequences. The fight sequences between because there's like 3 of them between Black Panther and Bucky.
Yep.
And it's very, very close combat, and it's very aggressively kung fu. And in a very good way, too, as someone who's a huge martial arts fan. I thought his character was great. The actor that played him, anybody got his name off the top of their head?
Chadwick Boseman.
He originally was going to not do the role after he signed up for it, because he thought it was going to be like this blaxploitation type thing. They gave him copies of the comic, like one of the series from the 90s, and he ended up getting so invested into the character, he went to Africa, where Wakanda is supposed to be in the comics, got a language coach to learn the accent.
Good for him.
To be practical, and he now owns every single issue of Black Panther.
Good.
And you can tell that he is very, very invested into the character.
Just one more time. This is what happens when you actually use the right people for the right roles. Stop whitewashing. Stop blackification. Stop it. Stop it, Hollywood. This is what happens when you take a good character and develop them properly.
Yeah, you have an actor that is properly invested in it. You have a producer and, director that have him. He is Black Panther from the comic books.
Who directed this?
100%.
The brothers.
It wasn't Whedon.
No, it was the brothers. I forget their names.
That's okay. So, here's my big question as we wrap this up.
Sure.
Is this the end of the Civil War and we're moving back on to Thanos and Infinity Gauntlet? Or is this is it? This movie is the Civil War series.
Oh no, they've got to follow this up.
Okay, so at the end,
this is not all right. So
it's not resolved.
If this is a spoiler, I guess if you've read the comics, this is not Civil War.
It feels like the beginning to it, and I do agree they do have to continue this because there's 0 references to anything Infinity, anything Thanos related whatsoever, other than Vision still around.
Thanos is too busy sitting on his throne still.
Yeah.
This is Zemo pulling strings.
Yeah.
This is not Civil War.
Okay.
And it's the other thing that did bother me that I want to point out, the idea that Scarlet Witch needs to use her fucking hands to use her powers is fucking stupid.
That is stupid.
They need to stop with that shit. Oh, she's in a straitjacket. She can't use her fucking powers. Dumb.
Scarlet Witch is Invisible Woman. She has Invisible Woman entire moveset. It's not Scarlet Witch. It is not Scarlet Witch. So at this point, I'm gone.
I kind of get it because...
Well, you can't have the most powerful character in the entire universe just run amok.
It's hard to have her and not have Magneto. This is the one thing that I don't get is so... I saw the trailer for X-Men Apocalypse while I'm watching, before this movie started, and Quicksilver is in X-Men Apocalypse. I thought that the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver rights were owned...
Nope.
No. Quicksilver was in the X-Men First Class.
No, he was in Days of Future Past.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant.
But
Sorry.
I thought that the Marvel Universe with Captain America and the Avengers owned Scarlet Witch and owned Quicksilver.
There's no owning. No. They just do their own versions of it as long as they don't call them mutants.
They're just allowed to?
No, they both have rights to use those, but they don't have the rights to call them mutants.
It's like conjoined rights.
Yeah, it's like
it's
weird
split time. Like I get them every other weekend.
Yeah.
I get them 3 days during the week.
Fox is the mom that won the court case, and then
but they're the cool dad.
It makes it so shitty that you can't use mutants, especially in the Civil War.
Well, I mean, now that Spider-Man's over here, there might be some talks, but Fox is doing okay with the mutants lately, so it is shitty that there's no crossover, but Days of Future Past was great.
Yeah, but it makes it so difficult. And I guess part of it, the storyline would have made no sense if the idea that Hydra and Nazis had Magneto's kids would have been like the most dumb thing ever.
All right. Moving on, next up we have some board game reviews. I'm going to start with Yardmaster Express. I got this game for free when I went to BGG-Con last year. Let's make this really quick. It fucking sucks. This is like almost, and it might even be worse than, it's on the same level as Exploding Kittens.
Ooh.
Probably the most random, awful game I've ever played. I hear the original Yardmaster is pretty decent. This game is terrible. Now, granted, the production quality is excellent. This game is made by Crash Games. They give you a slipcover. They give you a magnetic case. It's pocket-sized. really cool little square cards. There's no art on the cards whatsoever, but that's fine. It's kind of an abstract game, and the idea is that you both, well, not both, but however many players there is. I played it with 2, that's why I said both. Each player starts with the front of the train, and then you get a hand of cards, and you draw 1 card every turn, and you're trying to build the train. Now, each portion of the train, each section, or each card has 2 pieces of a train on it. It has colors on each piece and a number. And the only way you can keep building your train, and everybody stops at 7 pieces of train, each time you put a piece down, it either has to match the color of the preceding end of the train or the number. If you match multiple colors together, then you get a bonus at the end. And then once you hit 7, you add the caboose, it's done. Whoever has the most points wins. Yes, it is that simple. Yes, it is that random. And it's the dumbest thing I've played in a long time. It has no strategic depth to it whatsoever. It's just completely fucking off the rails random, no pun intended. And all you do is just put down cards from what you draw. Oh, and there's a mechanic of passing your cards, so you pass your hand over every time. That's probably the only strategic part of the game, is you have to decide, what am I handing over to the other person? Does it help them build their train? It's like a drafting kind of mechanism, sort of. That's it. That's the game. You just put down random cards.
Next.
It's next. Exactly. It's dumb.
This thread is now about trains.
Yeah, don't ever get it even for free. This is going into the fucking sell pile.
As he literally throws it into a giant pile of games.
Next up, we have Eminent Domain Microcosm. This is a semi-pocket-sized sequel, or semi-sequel pocket-sized game by Seth Jaffe, who made the original Eminent Domain and is produced by TMG Games. If you've ever played Eminent Domain, it's a great sort of semi-tableau deck building. It's kind of like a mix between Glory to Rome and a deck builder. It's a great game, and if you've not played it, definitely go check it out. But if you want a pocket-sized version, this actually lines up pretty damn closely to the original game, with a lot of the same decisions and gameplay elements that the bigger game has, minus all the chits, minus all the decks of cards. You get 1 deck of cards, both players, so you build like almost like an Ascension style deck building card row in the middle of 3 cards plus the domain card deck right next to it. There's a bunch of planet cards face down in 3 piles, and you get to know basically how much it takes to take one of these planets. And I'll get into that in a second. And then there's a set of technology cards, 1 for each tech in the game, and there are 5. And on your turn, basically you draw one of the supply cards, put it in your hand, and then you get to either play a card or take all your cards back. Because once you play a card, it goes in front of you or into a discard pile. And then you can either play a card on your turn or take all your discard back to your hand to be able to play these actions again. And when you're doing this, you're basically trying to build points for the end of the game. But how you do that is very unique and interesting. So depending on what cards you're getting, it will depend on your strategy for the game. So you can go down kind of a scientific route. And the more science you have, the more kind of like abilities you have throughout the game, and that may get you the most points in the end. Or you can go down the military route and grab grab all the cards that are more military based, and you get to blow up planets and blow up your opponent's planets. And basically when you blow them up, they still count as points, but you don't get to use them for abilities later because you've pretty much eradicated the population. Speaking of population, there is also a colonization, so you can go kind of a peaceful route. If you start getting those cards, you can kind of inhabit planets and colonies, and there are certain, requirements to do them from the planets section of the board. And then once you colonize them, or once you can take them, put them on your side, and then you get to use them for other special abilities. And it's really cool because certain cards let you kind of upgrade what the planet or what the card can do depending on what symbols you have from colonizing planets. The last thing I'd want to talk about, so those are the 3 main things you can do. You can, fight shit, you can peacefully take shit, or you can just be really scientific and just have an arms race and kick the shit out of people that way. The planets all have like defensive capabilities. So when you're fighting them without your opponents having any of the planets, they have a lower point cost to take them. But if your opponent owns a planet and you try to go after it, its defenses are higher because it has your opponent's faction on there. Because each of you are basically giant conglomerates of civilizations trying to take over the universe. That's pretty much the game in a whole. It's a 2-player game. It lasts about 10 minutes, and especially once you really get the idea of how the game works, it starts running smoother and smoother every time you play it, like with most games, but this one really does that strongly. I fucking love this game. Now, I'm really disappointed that it's only a 2-player game because it's so good that I want to play it with a lot of people. But if you want a pocket-sized, in-depth, eminent domain type of gameplay, then definitely pick this game up. I'm sure it's super cheap. I picked it up on Kickstarter. Go figure. I would assume it's like a $10 game. It only has like somewhere around 30 cards in it or something like that. It comes with a bunch of promos if you get the Kickstarter version. I'm not sure about the retail version, but the promos, I don't believe are for this game itself. They're for their other games. But definitely huge, huge 2 big thumbs up. That is Eminent Domain Microcosm. Pick it up. Seriously, this game's great.
The art looks pretty cool. What's the deal with this obvious knockoff of Doctor Who?
Those are promo cards for the other games in TMG's library.
Oh.
The game itself is only...
The cards that don't get to Doctor Who?
Yeah. This is the game itself right here. It's probably about 35 cards.
Yeah, so there's... Just because you guys can't see what we're talking about, there's like 30 or 35 cards, and there's like another 15 for promos.
Yes, there's a lot of promos.
The art style looks very Race for the Galaxy style.
I think it's better. I think it's better than Race for the Galaxy. I mean, it's not the best art style I've ever seen, but the card quality is excellent. They're all linen finished. They're thick cards. They hold up really well to shuffling, but you're not going to do a whole lot of shuffling. You do it once at the beginning of the game, and then that's it. You're done. Because you don't have to shuffle a deck to pull from on your side of the board. It's just this one deck in the middle, and when you pull all your cards back to your hand, you're just picking between every card you've drafted throughout the game.
Yeah, looks neat. Looks like it's totally worth buying.
It's definitely,
especially if you're looking for something to slot in that's like a 2-player game that's pocket-sized.
Too few players.
Actually, that's the game right there.
Yeah, my group is typically, we're looking for 5-player games.
Yeah.
I think this game is worth it just to own and just keep it in your car or something. So if you're ever in the mood to play a game and it's only you and a friend out at a bar, this is an excellent bar game. It doesn't take up a lot of space on the table. Well, that's not necessarily true. If you're going the colonization route, you start taking up a lot of space on the table because you have a ton of planets in front of you. Mm-hmm. But that being said, it's still not a ton of table space. I think this is totally worth owning for anybody that likes board games in general.
It even has a cardboard, reinforced sleeve inside of the box.
Yeah, it's a tuck box.
Very, very high quality.
Very. Excellent, excellent game. 2 huge thumbs up. Next up, we have video game reviews. I'm going to keep talking here because I'm going to knock out Sega 3D Classics really quick. Mm-hmm. So, a 3DS game came out last week?
Yeah.
I think. Sega 3D Classics on the 3DS. This is the first 3DS game I've purchased in a while. Not that expensive. I think it was like a $30 game. It comes with 7 games, but they threw in 2 more, so technically 9. Comes with, if anybody remembers these games, some of them you will, some of them you will not. Power Drift, Puyo Puyo 2, Fantasy Zone 2, Sonic the Hedgehog, Thunderblade, Galaxy Force 2, Altered Beast, Fantasy Zone 2, and Maze Walker. Definitely nobody's ever heard of Maze Walker.
What's the difference between Fantasy Zone 2 and Fantasy Zone 2W?
So there was a 50 million Fantasy Zone games, and you're right, I didn't specify it was Fantasy Zone 2 versus Fantasy Zone 2W. There was a lot of spin-offs and weird versions, but there were also Sega Master System versions of the games. So that's what they kind of threw in there. Is Fantasy Zone 2 is the Master System version, and Fantasy Zone 2W is the arcade / Genesis type version of the game, even though I don't think the Genesis had one. The best the Genesis had was Arnold Palmer Golf, and there was a Fantasy Zone game built into Arnold Palmer Golf, which is really weird.
I only know like 3 of these games.
Right.
I know Sonic the Hedgehog, I know Altered Beast, and I know Puyo Puyo 2.
You know, the irony of our discussion of retro gaming is that there was a game that we talked about that actually has a semi-sequel in this game called Power Drift. It is a racing game that is kind of tough on the eyes in 3D mode. Excellent game. It's another Outrun type 2D racing game, but they make it 3D looking. But I had a lot of fun with Power Drift. Puyo Puyo is fucking Puyo Puyo. If you've never played it, it's Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine.
Yep.
One of those games. Fantasy Zone, it's kind of like a Defender-ish side-scrolling shooter where you get to fly back and forth instead of just in one direction. Sonic the Hedgehog. Everybody knows fucking Sonic. Thunderblade. It's kind of a behind-the-back helicopter game. I used to play the shit out of it in the arcades when I was a kid. Galaxy Force 2, probably the shining game on this collection. The 3D is amazing. The gameplay is great. And this is the arcade version and not the Genesis version, I believe, because it looks better than the Genesis version. This is definitely the standout out of the collection. Altered Beast is fucking Altered Beast, and this is the Genesis version, so it's not as good as the arcade version. The 2 Master System games, really good. Master System was always a really powerful system. It was damn near a Genesis, way far above the Nintendo NES. So they're really good games, and they are like kind of new versions. If you remember, the Master System had the 3D mode. It had like 3D glasses that you could plug into the system. They were electronic 3D. Really good. Really good games. Overall, an excellent compilation. I know people probably wanted me to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog a little bit. I love 2D side-scrolling games on the 3DS. I think they've all been done very well, and I really liked like the Kirby remake, the Excitebike one. The Kirby remake's the shining star out of all the virtual console games on the 3DS, but Sonic the Hedgehog, it's Sonic the Hedgehog. It's a great game. I think they could have made the 3D a little bit better on this version, like the actual 3D effect. But, I mean, it's still worth it. I mean, if you're a Sonic fan, then definitely pick up this collection just for that. But if I were going to... It was the sleeper for me. I was surprised. Galaxy Force 2 definitely shined out of all of them. And I think the weakest 3D is Sonic the Hedgehog, but it's still Sonic the Hedgehog, so it's a good game. Mm-hmm. But the weirdest 3D, it definitely goes to Power Drift. Really fun game, but I actually prefer to play it with the 3D off, and that's coming from a 3D whore. I have a 3D TV and everything. Power Drift's 3D is just, it kind of hurts your eyes. And I don't know what they did with it and why it does that. It gives you a better sense of the depth perception when cars are, coming at you and trying to get around them. But there's something strange about it that maybe they tried too hard with it, but it makes your eyes cross a little bit. But overall, Sega 3D Classics collection, maybe not worth it at the $30, but as soon as it hits the $20 mark, definitely pick this one up. So I give it 1 thumb up, 1 thumb down.
Fair enough. I mean, I'm not a big Sega fanboy at all, so...
I mean, if you like Sonic a lot, it's probably worth it just for that.
Yeah.
If you're a big Sonic fan.
Yeah. Which there's plenty out there.
Yeah. There are a big number.
So why don't we talk about a little Battleborn?
Why don't you lead up with everything? I'll give my impressions, because I, in fairness, have only played the beta.
Okay, so I've purchased the full version of this game. Mm-hmm. And I purchased it completely just head first, didn't care either way, because everybody kept comparing it to Overwatch, and I definitely have opinions about that. Mm-hmm. Battleborn is a unique game, I would say, sort of. I've not played anything quite like it, other than the fucking game that this company is known for.
Borderlands.
The Borderlands series. So it has a shitload of Borderlands in it.
Yes.
I don't know why they didn't just make a Borderlands 3, but the idea is that there's like 22 different hero classes. It's very MOBA-esque, especially if you play the multiplayer, which is almost a direct kind of, with creep lanes and shit like that. Even though from what I still haven't played that mode yet, but from what I understand, there's only one fucking lane. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's creep waves, and even in the single player or just the regular maps, you start off at level 1, you can get up to level 10, and throughout that, you can upgrade two different abilities. Instead of having a big tree or whatever, you get these little shards that give you money that you can basically, upgrade your character throughout the game with this stuff. So this game's not great.
No.
It's good, and I like it better than most of my friends do, and I know you're probably on the dislike portion. But the controls were a little iffy to me. I think that there's a little too much head bob, and the weapons take up way too much of the screen. Mm-hmm. It's not a very smooth experience.
No.
At all. As it pertains to the colors and the just so many things going on the screen at one time, like particle effects, and it's really garish. That's a very, very Londonish word.
Yes.
Garage?
No, not.
Versus.
Incredible. This game is way too loud. Like, way too loud. And I don't mean audio-wise, I mean visually.
Yeah.
There's just too much shit going on. You can't even tell. If an enemy is in your face and you're trying to use any kind of weapon that has a repeating motion to it, like a machine gun or whatever, dude, your whole screen is just numbers and explosions, and you can't even see what the fuck is happening. Mm-hmm. Character design, pretty bad.
Yeah.
These graphics, now environmentally, it's okay, but the characters themselves are really weak. There's a few characters that stand out that I kind of like, sort of, but for the most part, they're pretty bad.
A lot of them felt interchangeable. And that was one of the first things that I'm glad you brought up the characters, because in the beta, you only gave you like 6 dudes to really tool around with. And like the actual roles, comparatively to something like Overwatch, where a support is most certainly a support and seldom will be doing any of the killing, this game, the support didn't really feel supporty. It didn't really feel like it was doing anything to contribute other than shooting the enemy, which is, supposed to be like the carry's job.
Yeah, for character-defined roles, I mean, there is some differences, but you're right, overall, it's a very shooty game. It's... Oh, and back to the Borderlands stuff. It even, like, the way the guns kind of feel is very Borderlands-ish. Yeah. Like, it takes 1,000 hits just to kill anybody. And the little numbers pop up with the exact same font from Borderlands. And on top of it, when you're playing single player, every time a boss comes out, they do that stupid cutscene where they're, like, fucking jumping through the air, standing there in a pose, and then the background changes to, like, this swooping thing, and they put the name of the guy up there, just like Borderlands. Like, they literally took Borderlands and just made a different game with that same exact engine, except that this engine chugs compared to it's not optimized at all.
No.
Oh, speaking of poor game design, I don't know about the multiplayer maps, but in single player, you get stuck on every fucking rock on every fucking path, and you're constantly trying to jump, and the jumping's terrible. Just to get over these, like, little things built into the environment. It's very sloppy environmental design, like level design. It's just, that part probably drove me the most nuts out of everything in this game. But I would say that it does hit the addictive spot on collecting stuff and upgrading your characters. Now, granted, the skins are not skins. They're just, there's like 7 skins per character, but they're all just recolors. That part is really obnoxious. It's like, you're gonna go this far into it and charge this much for this game. Now, mind you, this is like $20 more than Overwatch. And we'll get into the comparisons heavier later, but yeah, the value of this game is not there. This shouldn't have been a $60 title. And if you want the season pass, $75 title. Or $70 if you get the collector's edition. Overall, gameplay is not spectacular, but it's not bad. I wouldn't put it in the bad camp. I would put it in the meh camp.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I'm not really sure it's worth the time and effort for anybody unless you're... Why didn't they just make Borderlands 3? That's my big question.
Yes, that is the exact question that... Because when this game launched, the obvious comparison is with Overwatch. And the beta came out like 2 weeks before the Overwatch beta started, so I got a little bit to play in both. And the first question that I was talking with one of my buddies at work who also played both betas, and the first question we both asked is, where the fuck is Borderlands 3 and why did they bother? I mean, at the end of the day, Battleborn is going to ultimately always be compared to Overwatch, and the problem it suffers with is the fact, just like Civil War to Winter Soldier, that we have better. Why? It's not a bad game on its own, but I think also pushing it back this far really hurt it as well. Like, if this game launched in February, like that post-Christmas lull, and there was, like, Fire Emblem was the only thing I was really looking forward to, I probably would have picked this up. But the fact that it's coming out in May, and now it's got to compete with, or, I'm sorry, it came out April? I don't remember. But the fact that it's competing with things like Overwatch, Uncharted, No Man's Sky, Doom, it's going to get swallowed, and I don't think that's going to be supported in a game that requires multiplayer for it to really get you all the bang for your buck. I think it's going to be a very flat experience.
But before we go too far into comparison, and we'll keep it fairly short because we're running a little long now, the voice acting is atrocious in Battleborn. I mean, probably some of the worst voice acting, and I don't mean like stiff wooden PS2 era voice acting, or PS1 era even. We're talking just forced, ham-fisted, terrible character jokes. They tried so hard to be funny and so hard to be like outrageous that it's probably the most annoying game I've ever heard in my life. I cannot stand the voice acting in this game. Bad. Very, very bad. But I'd also like to talk briefly about Battleborn Tap, which is an accompanying app/game for mobiles. This game's actually really good. If you're into tap RPGs, so real quick, basically you can tap the screen a lot and shoot. Your team goes on the left, the enemies just keep flying in from the right, and you just keep upgrading them. And you also get a cool, like, not a cool skin, but you get an extra skin in the full Battleborn game if you connect your Shift accounts, because that's the Gearbox thing, Shift.
Sure.
Actually, Battleborn Tap is pretty fun. I'm fairly addicted to it, and I probably like it better than the full game itself, but it makes me want to play the full game after I'm done playing Battleborn Tap, and I keep logging into Battleborn Tap to try to, like, upgrade my characters and get further. It's almost a roguelike that you just keep leveling up your characters and killing all the waves of minions that come in so that you can get more money, so that you can upgrade them further. And there's also really cool systems in there for actual, like, equipment upgrades to your characters. And it's all free, and it's very free. You can buy faster progression, but it's not even worth it. It's seriously, it's not anywhere near worth paying a dime to the Battleborn Tap game. They give you tons of free stuff to upgrade your characters. And I'm pretty far into it. I've played it many hours. I've played it more hours than I have the full version of the game. So, if anything, check out Battleborn Tap, which is a pretty decent game. I'll give it to it. But let's cap this off with Overwatch comparisons. First of all, they're nowhere near the same fucking game.
No.
They're not. They just visually, they came out at the same time-ish, and they visually have some resemblance of each other, but they're very, very vastly different games. Overwatch is an arena shooter with kind of a little bit of a MOBA element to it, where there's hero classes, but you don't level up, you don't get gear, you just, Overwatch is what it is. It's kind of like Team Fortress 2 more than it is a MOBA. Mm-hmm. Battleborn, on the other hand, you level up in the match, you strengthen your characters, you get gear, more like League of Legends, kind of like permanent gear for your characters that'll make them better overall, but also has some drawbacks to the gear on some of it. It has minions and lanes and shit like that, which is definitely not Overwatch. So and Overwatch does not have a PvE story like Battleborn does.
Sure.
Even though the story in Battleborn is fucking bad.
Well, that's what you're paying the $20 more for, is a bad story.
That's exactly what you're paying the extra money for. And if you buy the season pass, which I did, because like I said, I just dove head first, just said, fuck it, let's do it. That's pretty much all you're paying for is the single player stuff, and it's not worth it. It's awful. Awful single player. Ugh. Story's bad, acting's bad, there's no point in playing it. It's just... Now, the only good part is if you don't like multiplayer and you just want to play a single player thing, there are better options out there. Go pick up Borderlands 2 or 1 even, really cheap. But if you want to play Battleborn and maybe occasionally play online, all the stuff you unlock in single player can be used in the multiplayer version. Smooth graphically and gameplay wise, Overwatch destroys this game.
Yeah.
I played both back to back on purpose. I played Battleborn first and I played Overwatch. First of all, graphics optimization. Dude, Overwatch, you can turn the graphics up way further without it chugging your computer. Battleborn is just so poorly optimized for machines that it's a joke, especially in this day and age. Character design wise, dude, it's not even a fucking fair fight. Overwatch absolutely destroys Battleborn in terms of, like, not just gameplay of their abilities, which is better than Battleborn, but just the actual, like, art design of the characters in Overwatch. They're way more endearing. The lore is way more fun to catch up with, and the design aesthetic is just light years above Battleborn. Battleborn is generic and poorly done. And I love mechs, and they both have mechs. And it's probably the only reason I'm giving Battleborn any credence is because they have some moderately interesting kind of robotic type stuff or armored type characters. But overall, if you're looking for the next game to buy and you're kind of on the fence between the two, Overwatch all day.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. If you're really jonesing to play something Borderlands-like, just play Borderlands.
Yeah, completely agree.
Try the beta. I think they still have like a demo free, or if you had it downloaded beforehand, you can play it. The color palette was very Liberace's Wet Dream, purples and reds, and the minions were all the same color, or the creep was the same color as the corridor that we're fighting in. I did not enjoy my experience in the beta. I will not be picking it up. I've loved everything I've played from Overwatch in the beta. That I'll be picking up.
Glad I didn't play it.
Yeah, I'll show it to you afterwards. It's not good. It's not bad, but it's not good. So let's get into the news of the week. Did anything happen this week?
No, Civil War came out.
All right, we're done then.
Good show, everyone.
A shitload of news this week.
Oh,
KG, you want to take the top?
I'm afraid to, because every time I've talked about this, Audacity has eaten my information.
Well, we're not going to go too in depth because someday we will have a Hearthstone episode.
So Whisper of the Old Gods launched. I'm very timid to say that out loud because anytime I've said it, we've lost this shit. And it'd be a shame to lose a whole episode. But Whispers is out. Standard is out. I've played a shitload and I'm still experimenting. 134 card set. Very flavorful set. Art is obviously amazing. New mechanics. I'm loving it. If you're a Hearthstone fan, you don't need me to tell you it's already out and you're playing it as well.
What do you think about, or what do both of you think about the new meta? Like, how are you feeling about it?
I don't think it's been solidified yet. So you've got some mainstay decks that you're seeing a hell of a lot of. Tempo Storms released their new tier, what are the new top tier decks to play, and you're starting to see more of those decks because it's come out.
Yeah.
But I think we're still, maybe in a month we'll know what the new meta is.
No,
it's slowed down a lot, but the mainstay decks that are ranked the highest are all really aggressive.
Yeah. I'm just excited because if you look at their the top two tiers, all the classes are represented relatively high, and I think the only one that gets a double in the top 10 is Shaman. So that means of the top 10 decks, all 9 classes are represented and are very good decks. So
really? Hunter's in there?
Hunter's in there, yes.
I've seen next to no Hunter.
The mid-range variant Hunter, I don't think it runs N'Zoth. I think I'm running something similar, but I think I'm taking in the Camel. I might take that out and just go straight more Death Rattly. And maybe top off at N'Zoth, but a lot of Hunter decks are cutting N'Zoths now, and now we're getting way too hard to detect.
Honestly, I wasn't completely sold on this new set until I started playing N'Zoth. Like Cthulhu is okay. He's kind of fun sometimes, but N'Zoth really makes me love some of the new gameplay of this.
Yes,
new
it makes
set.
a lot more classes viable, and they gave enough tools to make N'Zoth the strongest of the gods.
That, and I think that it's nice to be able to play Shaman. It sucks that I see so much Shaman out there. But I agree that most everything is very well playable. Patron Warriors come back in a big way. Freeze Mage is still super annoying. New Zoo review is fun.
Yeah. I like that every class is viable, and when you queue into ladder with a class or deck, that the room we have for experiment still makes it so even if you made something that's not 100% to Hearthstone or Temple Storm deck, you could still win. I like the early meta where we're still figuring out the puzzle of the set.
So, we obviously don't want to make this a Hearthstone episode, so we will leave it at that for those of you that are already groaning at us. Some new news, big news really, coming out of the Games Workshop world is that we got the new trailer for Dawn of War 3. Did either of you watch it?
I haven't watched it yet.
It is brutal as fuck. And apparently they have listened to my bitching over the last, half a decade, and it's going to go back to base building like Dawn of War 1 was.
Good.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to call this Dawn of War 2.
Much like the new Indiana Jones movie is Indiana Jones 4.
It starts with dead bodies raining from the sky. So very grim and dark,
Okay.
very to the 40K type universe. You get to see Space Marines, Imperial Guard, Chaos, Eldar, Orcs. You get to see, all of the mainstays that we have come to love from the 40K universe are represented, and it just looks brutal. And, there's not a whole lot gameplay-wise that's in there at all. So, but exciting news to see that the 40K franchise is getting out there again into the game world, because a lot of their games have done very well if you don't include anything that was mobile. Following up on that, there is also going to be a new Deathwatch Space Hulk video game coming out, staying with the 40K, and the trailer is you are a member of the Deathwatch and you are just murdering the shit out of Gene Stealers on a Hulk, and it looks fucking brutal too. So, for me, the giant Games Workshop fanboy that I am, super excited for both of these titles.
As a base builder fan, I'm excited for Dawn of War 3. But that's about it.
I think that Dawn of War 1 was one of the better base builders. It just never got developed enough.
Correct.
To be a StarCraft, you have to have so many fans that play, and you have to constantly tweak and mod and make new things that we just never got with Dawn of War. So I'm excited and very fingers crossed hopeful that we're going to get that out of Dawn of War 3.
I gotta interrupt you because this is the most important piece of news that we've had in a long time. And you were running a little long, but we have to talk about the new Call of Duty Infinite War, and it's going to come with a Modern Warfare remaster.
Oh my god!
Internet, get your diapers on because it's going to be loaded. Holy shit, that's amazing! I really don't care.
Yo, dog.
They've run out of IP so far that they're remastering COD 4.
We put COD in your COD.
Yeah, it's taking place in outer space. So yeah, we're done killing zombies and we're done killing Nazis. Let's go kill Zerg.
What about space Nazi zombies?
You know
Zerglings.
that's what's fucking coming too. That's the stupid part.
Nazis on the moon that are zombies.
That actually doesn't sound half bad. I'm not gonna lie.
Just dial it up to 11, guys.
In other first-person shooter news, Battlefield. The new Battlefield is going to take place in World War I.
That's weird.
And it's called Battlefield 1.
Taking a clue from Microsoft, apparently.
Fuck you, EA.
Has anyone done a first-person shooter World War I game?
There's been twists on World War I, but I don't think there's been a full-blown, actual, historic World War I.
It could be cool. I mean, Battlefield's always made solid games, and the idea of having a World War I game seems kind of cool. I just don't know with trench warfare. Do you just sit there and get depressed as your foot slowly rots off?
I don't know how much fun it would be to dogfight in biplanes. You know what I mean? Like,
the Red Baron here. Like twisting your mustache as you fly your plane. As you can tell, we're huge console first-person shooter fans.
Not so. And the last one we have is actually an interesting approach. It is a new Star Wars game announced May the 4th, which is getting really fucking annoying really quickly.
mm-hmm.
May the 4th be with you!
Oh my god, it is so
And then the Revenge of the 5th.
Douchey. Anyways.
There's a Revenge on the 6th after Cinco de Mayo.
Jokes!
Oh my... Anyways, the guys that made Titanfall are making a new Star Wars game.
Yeah, and it's not going to be a shooter.
No, I have no idea what it's going to be.
No, I hear it's like they pulled some like God of War people into this, and
Really?
it's going to be a God of War
Jedi beat 'em up sounds fun.
Yeah, that's kind of what it's going to be. God of War, I don't know, third-person action, whatever.
I'm
Force
interested.
Unleashed 3.
Forced Unleashed more. More Force Unleashed.
All right, let's talk about things that are actually cool.
New Spider-Man?
New Spider-Man game to coincide with the new movie. I guess that's spoilers if you didn't stay through the end of the credits of Cap'n. But more importantly, it's being made by Sucker Punch. For those of you who don't know what Sucker Punch is, it's not that terrible movie that Matt can never remember. Rather...
It's not terrible.
It's terrible. Rather, this is the company responsible for the Infamous titles. And I love Infamous. So, yeah, maybe we'll actually have a good Spider-Man game again. No? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love Spider-Man. When's the last time we had a good Spider-Man game?
Spider-Man 2.
Well, I mean, the sequels that tried to be like Spider-Man 2 were okay. They just felt too close to Spider-Man 2 to, they were good games.
You think we just needed the time in between to more or less make Spider-Man 2 again and it'll be fun?
I don't know. I think people are over that wow factor of, oh my God, they actually made it open world and you could swing around. And it's like, okay, obviously it's Infamous people, so they're gonna fucking do the exact same thing again. Not excited, nor did I like Infamous, but that felt like a one-trick pony anyway.
You're crazy.
No, it was boring.
It wasn't.
You were such a Sony fanboy, it hurts.
Speaking of boring, I'm a Sony fanboy. Ready? Gran Turismo Sports. Vroom vroom goes the car. And PlayStation VR have possibly leaked their release dates to come out at the same time, which would be October 12th. I am excited for one. I'll give you a guess.
Obviously, it's Gran Turismo. As it's the best racing game there is.
Vroom vroom goes the car. I need a license.
If we get Gran Turismo in VR, it's going to be fucking amazing. Because Polyphony, like Gran Turismo or not, has always made the most realistic, incredibly authentic games, period. Like, the level of Asperger's Spurgeon that goes into making a Gran Turismo game makes my head hurt.
So I get to enjoy in glorious PlayStation VR how bad a driver I am in my living room. I don't even have to go outside, guys.
Yay.
You hear how enthusiastic I am.
To be fair, as much as I can't stand racing sims, the idea of being able to... And it's the one thing in racing games that why I've never played in first-person view is because it felt very restrictive of your peripheral vision.
Yes.
But to be able to have VR while sitting inside of a car, I'm going to guess is going to make it a lot more fun to be able to actually look around.
Yeah.
But just VR for the PlayStation, I mean, let's all get real. That's a huge, huge deal. It's like the VR systems that are out now are great. Obviously I don't have both. We just have the Vive and I'm loving it, and watching movies in it is fucking amazing too, by the way. But this is going to open the doors for VR for so many more people. Because, let's face it, VR is really fucking expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about having a high-end rig to run it on. It is not... The barrier for entry is very, very high for VR right now. As a PlayStation, what do you think this is actually going to cost as a PlayStation ancillary? $300?
Yeah.
$400?
I think it's going to be about $400. Well, speaking of that, the PlayStation VR, I'm very curious as to find out how it's going to run on the PlayStation 4, because obviously we all know it's going to, whenever you use VR, you're running two versions of the game that you're playing.
Yes.
Which is why a lot of VR games currently aren't the highest graphical quality. Here's the big question. With the PlayStation Neo, aka the PlayStation 4.5, being a stronger version of the PlayStation 4, is it going to be necessary to own a Neo to really get the most out of PlayStation VR?
That's what's concerning me.
Me too.
Ever since PlayStation Neo's was announced, it's been under my skin and really bothering me. And if it is, like, obviously it will play better. I just want it to be playable on the current generation. If it's horribly unplayable, then I'm going to be super upset and might just jump off Sony fanboy wagon.
So all the specs I'm hearing about the PlayStation Nero, that was for you, KG.
The Fall of Rome.
I was thinking more along the lines of Devil May Cry.
Oh.
The PlayStation Neo is going to have only a stronger processor. Mm-hmm. That's literally the only thing I'm hearing out of it right now, which sounds to me like it's built around the VR headset. So are we talking playing the VR on the original PlayStation 4 running at 20 frames a second versus, there's no way any game's going to run 60 frames a second in a VR setting. Are we talking 15 to 20 frames a second versus 30 frames a second, which is acceptable? So we're not even talking the PlayStation 4 running acceptably. We're talking it running like Perfect Dark versus running on a next-gen system where we actually get to have playable frame rates. Because 30 frames a second is the lowest playable frame rate you can get, in my opinion.
I agree. And that's, again, the concern. I guess we'll have to wait till this actually launches before we can give a thumbs up or thumbs down if it is, in fact, playable. Because if it's not, super pissed.
So here's the other big part of that discussion. The Xbox Next.
Capital X.
Clever.
The Xbox Next, which is a much better name than the Xbox One.
I agree.
This is supposedly going to absolutely, it might as well be a brand new Xbox system, because they're talking it's going to be 4 times more powerful than the PlayStation Neo, not even the PlayStation 4, and it's in pre-production already. Well, actually, it started pre-production in February, so it's probably in production now.
Yep.
It's going to be upgradable like a PC, which, hey, I called it years ago that eventually consoles were going to be PC, and we're already there pretty much. And it's going to play Xbox One, and 360 games right out of the box with no issues. So what's the validity of this? Does anybody actually think it's going to be 4 times more powerful? That sounds a little excessive.
It depends where you're pulling your power from, right? So, like, are you doing joint video and processing power, or are you just talking processing power? So, processing power, I don't think that makes any sense. We've come near topping out processors. We're just adding more and more and more cores at this point. So, if you're also talking video cards, though, I mean, dude, you slap in a PC video card in that thing, and yeah, I totally buy it. So you throw a 970 in those things, you make this thing cost $700 coming right out of the box. Yeah. It can absolutely be that much more powerful.
So here's the thing that they're talking about is that there's a side programming language that basically the way they're making their, I don't know if it's in the multi-core. I didn't read too much into it, but it's the idea of almost like a multi-threaded version of the Xbox. So if you just want to make, if a developer wants to be lazy, the games they're going to come out with are Xbox One quality. But if they want to take advantage of these side cores or side threads or whatever they're doing, like I said, I didn't read too much into it. If they want to take advantage of that, then they're basically quadrupling their available power, which it kind of sounds weird to me. It almost sounds like the Cell chip for the PlayStation 3. Yeah. And we all saw how that went down.
Yeah. It's so powerful, it's going to need liquid nitrogen to cool it.
The most important thing here is the fact that it's upgradable. Because to me, that means that this thing is going to be a PC. It's going to basically be a Steam box. They're going to make it very, very easy to change out parts. And they'll just make everything plug and play, which is where it needed to go anyways.
Right.
Also meaning that this should be the last console for Xbox.
I think that's where they're going.
I do.
And you'll get, it'll be Xbox Next, and then, in 2 Christmases, it'll be, there's the new CPU that you can get, or there's the new video card you can get, or there's the upgraded memory you can get. And those are the options you're going to have. And that's honestly where it needs to be.
I mean, it's going to fragment the the player base, but what else can you do? I mean, this console war thing is tired and old, and it's dying.
Well, there's just no reason to not make them computers at this point.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, speaking about consoles, the NX, where's this going to fit in power-wise to everything? So the NX is supposedly more powerful than the current generation of consoles, but I'm guessing it's probably PlayStation Neo levels of power.
Yeah,
but then again, I'm suspect on the whole thing being as powerful as these other systems, or more powerful, I should say, because of the handheld portion of it holding it back. I don't know, it's just really weird to me. And then, once again, I fucking called it. It's not coming out this year as much as they touted it was going to. It's going to come out in March of next year.
Supposedly.
That's such a weird release date. If you're going to release it in March, you should wait till November. As crazy as that sounds, you should wait the 8 extra months to get your fucking Christmas shit in.
Well, they've released other things Q1, like I think the DS is launched in February, March.
Did the GameCube launch?
Is that just because they're not competing with Nintendo? They're not competing with Xbox and PlayStation?
Well, they're about to be.
Are they? Are they?
If that's what they're touting it as, they want to be as strong as Microsoft and Sony with their home console. Yeah, I think they're trying to compete with them. At least with like the Wii U, they could always make the argument, oh, we're still a toy company, we're making toys. If they're making something akin to a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation Neo, they're going out of their way to say that it's as strong as current generations of consoles, then yeah, they gotta be compared as such to them.
Well, do you think, okay, so
the other big piece of news on this is that they're saying it's, go.
There's a few big pieces of news revolving around the NX. And I think this NX is a response and trying to fight the big boys, aka Xbox and PlayStation, because their profits are down 61% right now.
Yeah.
Nintendo's on the edge of death.
Yeah.
Like, that's red zone. And they've been in the red zone for a long, long time, but this is extra bad.
Red zone in business is not good. Red zone in football is good. So I just wanted to clarify for people.
And on top of all this system, now I'm back and forth about this, but this system's going to be cartridge based.
That's the way of the future.
It's rumored. It hasn't been confirmed yet.
So cartridge,
but I don't know how much of a rumor it is, because the manufacturer of cartridges is shot up right now. Like they're making NX cartridges. Like,
well, the guys that did that are making the carts for the 3DS currently, the 72 nanometer. Mm-hmm. I guess whatever that company is, it starts with an M. I forget their name. They've been charged to make 32 nanometer carts by Nintendo. Like Nintendo's buying them in bulk. So I think it's safe to assume that.
I mean, with where we've gotten with solid state, where drives are, where thumb drives are, it only makes sense that games are going to go this way. And it's not going to be just a solely Nintendo thing either. I would be surprised if we're not seeing it with... The only way I would be surprised that we're not seeing it with like an Xbox Next is if they're just putting them straight on the hard drive. Like you would on a computer. There is no disc. There is no fucking thing
all
to plug
digital
in.
Media.
Yeah, it's just all fucking digital.
Well, see, I think this makes sense for Nintendo simply because it has that, or the NX, I should say, because it has that handheld component. But does it make sense for the other companies? I don't think it does, because when you're mass producing games, I mean, we're going to go right back to, solid state is cheaper, but is it cheap enough yet? I think a Blu-ray holds plenty of space currently. Are we really past a dual layer Blu-ray yet? Are we past the 50 gig mark?
If you're building an Xbox Next with a 5 terabyte hard drive on it, yeah, you're way past.
How many
you just download the fucking game.
How many third parties are really going to take advantage of that? As you said, it's going to require additional languages, and if they want, they can just foist out an Xbox One caliber game. Why, how many companies are really going to take advantage of it? Take, for example, the PlayStation 3. How many games on PS3 filled a Blu-ray?
Well,
One?
filling a Blu-ray we're talking apples and oranges here. Just a little tech talk. Filling a Blu-ray just simply means that your textures and your quantity of things that you have, the variety that you have, is higher than the guy next to you. It doesn't mean the graphics are any better.
Sure.
That is dictated by the system itself, specifically the graphics card. The CPU is the portion that kind of puts it all together. But, well, actually, when it comes to consoles, the CPU handles a lot of the graphics, but not in the new generation. The new generation, the GPU took over finally, because that's the way PCs are, is the majority of your graphical fidelity comes from the video card. The way it used to be is it was a lot of shared responsibility. But when, previous consoles, it was mostly the CPU. There really wasn't even much GPU to talk about. So with filling, quote unquote, going back to filling a disk is more about the quantity of stuff you're throwing on there.
Correct.
So you want higher resolution textures and you want a shitload of them. Well, then, yeah, you're going to need more fucking space. And we are getting to that point where, okay, we're going to need that. And it needs to come off of the media quicker than on a disc. So does it take a new Blu-ray to just trump solid state media with more read speed and maybe twice as much space? Or are we going right to solid state media where, once again, I'm very concerned about the cartridge era, and I know things are cheaper now, but they're still not that cheap. I mean, think about it. If you want a 1 terabyte solid state,
Think about how much space a terabyte is, though.
yeah, but okay, I'll even be more conservative. A 500, let's make it 10 times a Blu-ray. A 500 gig card, you're still talking like, for a little tiny chip, you're talking at least $100 fucking thing here. And then pack on all of the data you're going to put on the damn thing to sell it to somebody.
Well, part of me wonders, too, like, are you going to get one with it and then you can download to it? I mean, that's also a very viable thing. It's like you get a card with your NX that's a terabyte.
America's not ready for that. There's no way America's ready for that. We don't have the infrastructure for that.
Oh, the internet, the internets that you need?
Yeah. There's no way. I would totally be out. Like, right now, I have decent internet speeds on a shitty company, but there's no, like, if we're talking hundreds of gig games now, like, I'm out.
Games aren't going to be that big. Yeah, they're not that big on PC.
But they are. Look at fucking Elder Scrolls Online. It's like 300 gigs or something retarded. No, 30 gigs.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, nothing's in the
But we're
hundreds.
talking about next gen, and we're making 10 times leaps every gen.
Yeah, but the space that we see now that's taking up everything isn't graphics, it isn't processing, it's fucking audio. Audio is such a fucking hog when you want high-end audio. Like, if you're downloading a legal Blu-ray movie onto your computer, yeah, it's the audio, it's not the 1080p that makes it huge, it's the audio that comes with it.
Yeah, but we're talking 4K now also.
That's true. Yeah. If you're going to be making your games in 4K...
That's exactly what they're talking about for these next systems.
PS Neo, Xbox Next, they're all going to be 4K compatible.
Is it just me, or does that seem excessive?
It's extremely excessive.
As a guy that loves technology and just bought a brand new TV, I saw zero reasons to buy a 4K TV. And I didn't.
I mean, that's valid right now.
It's just the idea that we're gonna and like I said, I think of myself as being in the higher end of the tech sector of, like, having PCs, having VR, having all that shit in our house, and you're telling me that we're gonna make, like, the average Joe that plays video games on a console that wants to play COD needs to have a 4K TV?
We don't have the infrastructure for 4K yet. There's no fucking way in hell.
But this is the thing that makes that infrastructure happen. If you have hundreds of thousands of units in homes, you're gonna make it to where people can use them.
I don't know.
I think the NX is gonna fall flat as shit.
I think it needs price drop now. 4K is still out of reach for a lot of working class Americans.
Correct. Like, for me, like, $1,000 is that, like, huge purchase. Like, there's no way I'll ever consider going over that for a TV, and I've got expendable income, and I can't touch 4K at that. Not a good one.
No.
And how is Nintendo? Nintendo thinks it's going to compete in this market.
I don't think they will at all. To KG's point, like, when we talked about fix shit Nintendo, you have to make it to where the CODs of the world want to put their game on your system. Madden needs to be on your system. COD needs to be on your system. FIFA needs to be on your system. Those are all mainstays that you have to have. And why the fuck are they going to want to build for you? Do they want to build onto a cartridge? I think the answer is no.
Well, they're going to ride on stuff like Zelda.
But that's not them competing. That's them being Nintendo, which is fine. But to your point, they're down 61% in profits. Being Nintendo's not working. Iwata's dead.
KG, didn't they say something about Zelda?
They said only about Zelda, to be honest. So E3 is very much on the horizon for us. And thus far, this story has been bastardized and distorted like 11 times over now. So the story is that the only thing playable at E3 this year will be the new Zelda game. Playable is the word I wanted to highlight because everyone and their mother on the internet is clamoring that the only thing Nintendo will be showing off at E3 will be Zelda, which would be huge misstep, especially when they want to stay relevant. I mean, understanding Zelda is pretty much, their last-ditch effort or like their flagship, even more so over Mario.
Yeah.
At this point, this is like Zelda is going to make or break Nintendo's future, and they have to be all in on it. So I get, hyping this for it, but at the same point, if that's all they're showing at E3, oh shit, are they going to lose E3, the most important gaming conference in the world?
If they come in with only Zelda, and they're going up against, beta models of an Xbox Next, it's going to be a joke. They're going to get fucking trounced.
There's no way they're going in with just that. There's no way. But if that's their highlight, like if that's literally the only thing anybody's going to care about, then yeah, they're done anyway.
Yeah, it would take major things to trump a Zelda like playable, which would be huge for everyone that gets to go. But how many people are watching E3 online? How many people are watching E3 on, I don't know, is it Spike TV that carries E3? How many people are that versus how many people actually get to go there and play it? Sure, it's cool for those that are there, but for everyone else tuning in to E3 to watch E3, having just Zelda be like the big thing you want to talk about will make you lose. You need a new Mario, you need a new Metroid, you need a new something other than something we already know exists. That can't be your bomb. Look at how Sony does all their conferences. Look at how any successful E3 conference has gone, and they always have that one like mic drop moment, Final Fantasy VII Remake aside.
All right, well, we shall see. That's our episode for the week, episode 61. We hope you enjoyed it. I am Matty D.
Oh, shit.
What?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just thought of a new episode joke. Episode 61, our profits aren't down this much percent.
Zing.
Burn on you, Nintendo.
That was KG. Next to me is Mr. Mike. I am Matty D. We'll catch you next week. Check us out on iTunes. Give us a good rating. Give us feedback. We will read your letters on the air at GameRantRepeat@gmail.com. We'll catch you next week. Thank you.
See you guys.
Annyeong.
All audio for the show provided by Ron Wynn. And as always, if you could rate us on iTunes, we would be most appreciative. Please go to GameRantRepeat.com to get all of our newest and archived podcasts. Also, join us on Twitter at GameRantRepeat and subscribe on YouTube, channel name GameRantRepeat. If you would like to email us, please send your comments and suggestions to GameRantRepeat@gmail.com. Don't forget to stop by our Facebook page at Facebook.com/GameRantRepeat and give us a like. Finally, look for our guild 2195 on BoardGameGeek.com under Game Rant Repeat and join us with discussions. Thanks for listening and have a good one.